So this is written with nice juicy nibs on Cosmo Air paper. And if you look at it straight on, you don't notice the sheen, but if you put a little bit of an angle on the writing, the sheen just comes right out. Nice green sheen on Glen the Sea, and a nice typical red sheen on Love the Sea. Here's the same pens on Tomoe River paper. Doesn't quite sheen as much as Cosmo Air paper, but you can still see how it works. That green sheen is just amazing. The red sheen is good too. Sheen is a very interesting ink quality. Here's my classic paper towel examination. Here's the purple ink. Here's Love the Sea. And here's Glen the Sea. You don't notice the green so much. This blue is certainly really, really nice. And purple is almost more like an amethyst, if that's the word I could use to describe that color. So this shows you that on very absorbent material, no sheen will be seen. So why do I have more inks, which I certainly do not need? Because a viewer mentioned to me, oh, the inks are back on AliExpress. So that piqued my interest, and I went on AliExpress and took a look at what was there. The inks that the link he sent me took me to weren't of interest, but I found these, and I go, whoa, I think these look interesting. Let's order some. They were delivered very quickly. Ink sometimes can take a very long time because it's liquid, and depending upon how it's shipped and what the regulations are, that can delay delivery. But in this case, I got them very quickly, and I'm extremely pleased. These are extremely saturated, which most sheening inks are, because sheen is defined as that other color quality which happens when ink pools on the surface of the paper and dries fairly slowly. And as you saw on Tomoe River and mostly on Cosmo Air, those papers are fairly well coated. They don't absorb ink very well, and therefore ink takes a long time to dry, and you can get maximum sheen on those types of papers. In doing my research, I found a great description. Sheen is defined as kind of like that oily look that you can get on water when there's some oil on it. When you put the light on it, it reflects off the oil and sometimes can give you some interesting colors. So there's no real chemical definition. I mean, it is some kind of dye that when the ink soaks into the paper, that dye stays on top and provides you with that color that we call sheen. So the ink came in these small cardboard sleeves, and they do tell you there's sheen in the ink. It's a little description, and the package is very well labeled. Let's see what the bottle looks like. Interesting that they named the ink Ostrich, but I had to put a label on it because nothing tells you what ink is in this bottle. Somewhat of an oversight from a packaging perspective, but there is a solution. So with each bottle is this insert, which shows all the many colors of this series of ink. Red ruby, there's purple amethyst, which we have, green emerald, and of course they say sheen. Flip it over and we'll see more of these colors. Interesting names: Sea of Okinawa, Love the Sea, which we have, and it really shows that red sheen there. Glen the Sea really shows the green sheen. Blue Moon Lake and Lake Baikal, and some more descriptions. So very good packaging, very nicely done, except the bottles don't have any labeling to say what color is inside of them. So here's the sample for the water resistance testing. It's written on just 24-pound copy paper, which I use all the time. What amazes me is there is some sheen, especially in Love the Sea, a little bit in Purple Amethyst, and a fair bit more in Glen the Sea. Normally, copy paper, which is very ink absorbent, doesn't sheen inks, especially not like Toma River or Cosmo Air. If we flip it over, we'll see Love the Sea actually worked pretty well. But Purple Amethyst and Glen the Sea did get some bleed through, so that's interesting. I think also that has a lot to do with the nib, because I don't think Love the Sea nib is as generous as the Bach Broad or the President coarse nib. Now it's time to put the copy paper with the ink in water. What do you think is going to happen? I have my thoughts. Sheening inks are generally not very water resistant. Let's see. Whoa. As we see, Love the Sea just came right off the paper. And this is dried for 24 hours. So we're going to let it sit a little bit. And then we'll check in and see what it looks like. Oof. You can tell how saturated those inks are. So we're checking in at the 10-minute mark, and the ink continues to run away from the paper when water is applied. We'll let it go a little bit longer, and then we'll withdraw and see if there's anything readable. I can still see purple. So we've been about 20 minutes. Time to pull out the paper and see what remains after the water test. Whoa! Purple Amethyst survived fairly well. It's readable. Glen the Sea is a distant second, and Love the Sea is a distant third. So, as expected, not much water resistance, but Purple Amethyst is certainly more than I expected. So much for that test. So obviously we're doing an ink comparison review test, and it wouldn't be complete without chromatography. So here's Purple Amethyst, Love the Sea, Glen the Sea, and as you can see, there is a little residue there, which we saw during the water test. But one thing I was not prepared for is how similar the Purple Amethyst is with Glen the Sea. Got red, you got blue. There's just a little bit of a different combination here. And Love the Sea is just a really good blue. And I would call it certainly close to sea blue. But hopefully that's interesting. I used to do a lot more chromatography, but when I stopped doing it, nobody said they missed it. So I picked this Bach bold nib, broad nib, in this Renga Ajabanani because I think the ink works best in this combination. Yeah, this is incredibly smooth nib, and this supersaturated ink just works well. We'll let it dry a little bit and see if we see any sheen come out. The ink has to dry for sheen to come out. This is Fabriano paper, which generally doesn't show sheen as much as Toma River or Cosmo Air does, but I have seen sheen on this paper. Maybe you do. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at 3 incredibly interesting sheening inks. I'm impressed with Chinese ink makers. Yeah, I first started with Pen BBS inks and then Trommel inks and many others. Some of them were not branded, but all of them were very nice, most of them very saturated, and a lot of glitter inks, and now we have a lot of sheening inks. It's a good usable bottle. Unlike, it doesn't have any labeling on it to tell you what ink's in it, but I can easily correct that. There's a lot of inks available on AliExpress, and now the shipping was incredibly fast, less than 2 weeks. And a year or so ago, it would take a month or more. It would take a lot longer for inks than if you bought a pen or some dry goods from AliExpress or some of the other Chinese places to buy from. So I enjoy these inks. I certainly enjoy them in the 3 pens that I put them in. And hopefully you've enjoyed this look at some inks. Sheen is different than shimmer or glitter. And I've done a number of reviews on those types of inks. I'll put a link in the video description. So hopefully this video found all of you safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens and your inks and your papers. Hey, enjoy everything you do, which is my philosophy on life. So we've reached the end of this video. I want to say thank you all for watching, and we will say bye. Enjoy your day.